Thank you, Harold, and we appreciate the applicant's quick actions 2 days ago. Sarah Squires is with the Disability Rights Center, and the Disability Rights Center has been a partner from the beginning because the disability community of people with disabilities is one of the communities that will be most affected by this bill. Sarah Squires.
Good afternoon. The Disability Rights Center believes that the elimination of same-day registration will negatively impact Maine individuals with disabilities. Same-day registration is vastly important to people with disabilities because community service organizations and political parties often coordinate transportation services to assist individuals with accessing their local polling place. The elimination of same-day registration means that countless individuals with disabilities will be unable to participate in the electoral process. The ability to become a registered voter and cast one's vote on the same day allows all individuals, not just those with disabilities, the opportunity to fully participate in the electoral process.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Another community that's very much affected by this issue is the community of young people, young voters. And the League of Young Voters has also been a partner since the very beginning and are bringing their grassroots capacity to the signature collection and field efforts. Nicola Wells.
Good afternoon. My name is Nicola Wells, and I'm the co-director with the Maine League of Young Voters. I'm here today representing the thousands of members that we have in all corners of the state who are outraged by this bill. Before I address the people's veto directly, I'd like to ask you to remember the feeling you got when you first voted. I still get that tingling feeling in my stomach when I vote. In fact, I was reflecting this morning that in 2008, I remembered standing in line in my polling place and passing right by a statue of Frederick Douglass as I went to cast my vote and being moved to tears. Young people in Maine are passionate about voting, and we will not stand for a denial of our rights at the ballot box. Young people have been at the forefront of fighting for the expansion of the right to vote in America from the very beginning. Eliminating same-day registration will make it harder for young people to vote. We'll work with our neighbors, friends, and family to protect access to voting in Maine and ensure that we have a state government that will do the same.
Thank you, Nicola. The Maine Women's Lobby was one of the chief lobbying organizations on this. They worked from the time the legislature went in the morning until they left at night, lobbying to protect our voting rights. And now they're bringing their significant communications and grassroots capacity to this campaign. It's my honor to introduce Charlotte Warren of the Maine Women's Lobby.
Good afternoon. My name is Charlotte Warren, and I serve as Associate Director of the Maine Women's Lobby. We are a nonprofit membership organization which has been working since 1978 to increase opportunities for Maine women and girls. At the core of our mission is civic engagement. We strive for women to be represented equally at all levels of public life, as leaders, as advocates, as voters. Voting is fundamental to full civic participation, and that is why we are deeply concerned about the repeal of same-day voter registration. Revoking same-day registration establishes unnecessary and inappropriate barriers in front of prospective voters, especially women voters. It will turn back the clock on our democracy. It will turn back the clock on voting rights. Election day registration is part of Maine's vibrant democratic tradition. Why make it harder for these folks to register and vote? What's the purpose? While our country is 235 years old and our great state of Maine is 191 years old, women have only possessed the right to vote for 91 years. That's why Maine women take voting rights seriously.
Thank you, Charlotte. As you can see, we have a strong, motivated, and diverse group of organizations and individuals committed to protecting our voting rights. I'd like to read the full list of groups who are participating in this campaign at this time. Those groups include, I'm reading the entire list, including speakers and those who did not speak today. Engage Maine, the Maine Civil Liberties Union, the Maine League of Conservation Voters, League of Women Voters of Maine, the Maine AFL-CIO, the Maine League of Young Voters, the Maine Pupils Alliance, Opportunity Maine, Maine Equal Justice Partners, Equality Maine, Maine Women's Lobby, Maine Education Association, MSEA-SEIU, Speaking Up for Us, Disability Rights Center, Preble Street Resource Center, and Homeless Voices for Justice. This is just the beginning. These are the groups that have endorsed this campaign in the last 2 days. We'll now take questions from the press.
Jenna, could you talk a little bit about the process? I think that it's the 10% of the total ballots cast in the last gubernatorial election. What is that number? When does the clock start ticking? And when do you have to start collecting those signatures? And when do you need to have them back in?
Right. The number is just over 57,000 signatures. Ben, do you want to talk a little bit about the process? The clock starts ticking upon legislative adjournment. We have 90 days after that.
So the Secretary of State has 10 business days to respond to our application for a people's veto with a question that we can then put into circulation. As of final adjournment of the legislature, we have 90 days to collect those 57,000 plus valid signatures. I think that.
If you want to get on the fall ballot, you have to have everything certified by everyone 60 days before the next election. Is that correct?
That's correct.
What's your goal? I mean, is your goal to be on the fall ballot, and when do you anticipate needing to turn in?
Our goal is to be on the fall ballot.
And when would you expect to need to turn in those to get everything?
Early August.
So you've got about a month.
And what kind of leeway does the Secretary of State have in terms of acting when those signatures are received?
The Secretary of State has 30 days. Traditionally, Secretaries of State have not always taken 30 days, and we hope that the Secretary of State will not erect any barriers to the people's ability to protect the right to vote.
So if that were to come in, say, around the 1st of September, would that be too late to get on the fall ballot?
It would not. That would still be within 60 days of the fall election.
Do you anticipate having to use paid signature gatherers?
We're exploring that right now. We anticipate largely a volunteer operation. I mean, the greatest strength you see is in front of us with all the organizations that have come forward and their memberships and engaging their memberships in petition circulation.
Who are you seeking funding from? Are you asking for funding for any national organizations or parties?
We're seeking funding from Maine residents, from the leadership of the organizations represented as part of the coalition. From people who are interested in preserving democracy in Maine.
And if I can ask a question, I guess, taking off on what you just said then. You say preserving democracy. This does not deny anybody the opportunity to vote.
Well,
and can't you simply adjust all of your schedules 2 days early or whatever it might be so people can still vote?
Sure.
We heard hours of testimony in the public hearings on these bills from groups represented here, the Disability Rights Center, from the AARP, from Maine Women's Lobby, from seniors, from young people, from working people, that making voting a two-step process will disenfranchise voters. It will have the effect of reducing voter participation. And I'll just give you a personal example. In the small towns, the town offices are not open with extended hours. So in my town of Manchester, the hours, 2 days a week are 8 to 6. People who ride the van pool with me down to Portland get on the van pool at 6:30 in the morning, and they get off the van pool in Augusta about 6 o'clock. So for working people who have very fixed schedules, this is going to be a huge challenge. And what we can tell from the data is that this will have the effect of reducing voter participation and making it so that some, indeed thousands, of legitimate voters cannot vote on election day.
Yeah, I mean, Jesse Graham spoke to this. I mean, in 2008, it was over 50,000 Maine voters voted on election day. They registered to vote and voted on election day. If the law were different at that time, over 50,000 Maine people would have been disenfranchised on that day. That number in 2010 was 18,000, and it was evenly split between Democrats, Republicans, and unenrolled voters. It had not about partisanship; it's about access to the ballot.
And do you assume that a large number of those who normally vote, who normally register and vote on election day, even though they can do it they can register the rest of the year, simply won't bother because of that?
I think there's a real risk that people will show up to vote, not be allowed to register, and not be allowed to vote. We have a 38-year tradition in Maine that works extremely well, that people have come to rely on. And my question is actually, in return, why are we changing this? What is the goal for changing a system that is working so well? And in the last presidential election, allowed over 50,000 Maine people to vote.
Jenna, as part of this campaign, you're going to have to sell this argument, you vote this to some extent, I think. What will you tell them? I mean, what's your, from your perspective, what drove this into this legislation in the first place? Was it partisan driven? Is it part of a national effort to sort of limit people's access to the ballot?
I think people are overwhelmingly excited and enthusiastic about exercising their constitutional right to vote. So I don't see this as a campaign where we have to sell voters on the right to vote. And I think hearing folks' stories from the Disability Rights Center, from the ARP, from the League of Young Voters about populations for whom this will have real consequences, populations who want to vote but may have limited mobility, populations who want to vote but may be moving around a lot or working 2 jobs or more and not be able to register ahead of time. So we believe that there is incredible statewide support for same-day voter registration and that there has been for decades.
Have you done polling to see?
The MCLU has not done polling on this issue.
One of your groups has done polling, I believe, haven't they?
There was polling on another issue where this question was explored, and I think we could probably share some data with you soon.
But not now.
Not now.
Okay.
And your effort is nonpartisan?
Absolutely. Peter Mills testified at the public hearings in support of same-day voter registration. He's a registered Republican, former Republican gubernatorial candidate. We have with us here today a representative of the Tea Party. There were Republicans who voted against this legislation. And again, this legislation was passed 38 years ago, unanimously in the legislature, that was led by Republicans. This was the idea of Republican congressional candidate, Republican senator, and former Deputy Secretary of State, Denny Shue. So this is a nonpartisan issue that affects everyone. And when you look at the 2010 data, if you exclude Portland, statewide, the Republicans had a significant advantage on same-day voter registration. So there were thousands of Republicans signing up to vote on Election Day in 2010. Quite frankly, same-day voter registration benefits the candidate and the party with the most momentum and popularity in a particular year. Yes, sure.
To answer your question, Madam, Miss, I'm here, I'm independent. I'm here because I felt this was partisan, and the people's veto will put this out to the people where it belongs.
Your name, sir? I'm sorry.
Alan Loberg, independent, nonpartisan.
Any other questions from any of the groups or any of the speakers? Specific, if folks have any questions for League of Young Voters or Maine People's Alliance or any of the groups listed? Okay. We'll spend a lot of time with each other this summer, I think.
Thank you.